You know, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes pain is not weakness. It's a lesson, a wake-up call, a fire starter, and when a man hurts you, tries to break you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, he's not defining your worth. He's only revealing his own limitations. So today, I want to speak to every woman who's ever been dismissed, betrayed, manipulated, or misunderstood. You were never meant to stay in pain. You were meant to rise through it, smarter, louder, stronger, and sometimes you don't react, you don't explain, you don't cry. You just confuse him with your silence, with your self-respect, and with your unapologetic power. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming the power he thought he could take from you, because, darling, your power was never his to begin with. Silence is often misunderstood. People assume that if you're quiet, you're weak, passive, or defeated. But in reality, silence can be the most strategic and powerful response, especially when you've been hurt. When a man expects you to react with emotion, with anger, with tears, your silence does something unexpected. It disarms him, it unsettles him, because he was prepared for a fight, for drama, for validation of his power over your emotions. What he wasn't prepared for is your complete emotional withdrawal, your calm, your peace. Silence isn't about ignoring the pain. It's about mastering it. It's choosing not to give the other person the satisfaction of seeing you crumble. It's understanding that every word you choose not to say holds more strength than 100 emotional outbursts. You're not bottling things up. You're building control, regaining stability, and that quiet strength speaks volumes. It forces him to sit with his own behavior, his own guilt, his own confusion. When you say nothing, he starts questioning everything. In a world where everyone rushes to speak, to justify, to defend, silence becomes a language of its own. It communicates without chaos. It says, I see what you did. I understand what you tried, but you no longer have access to my energy. That absence of reaction is louder than any scream. It's not about passive aggressiveness. It's about active self-preservation. You are choosing to no longer play the game he set the rules for. When a man hurts you, your silence becomes the mirror he never wanted to look into. It reflects his actions back at him without filters, without excuses. And that silence, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't prove, it simply withdraws, and in doing so, it leaves him with the discomfort of his own actions. He starts to notice the shift in your energy, your boundaries, your lack of access. That is where the confusion begins. He will wonder why you're no longer reacting, why you're no longer explaining, why you're so composed, so unaffected. And that's when you begin to reclaim your power, when your absence becomes more noticeable than your presence ever was. Self-respect is the foundation of all power. It's the quiet, unwavering force that holds you together when everything else is trying to pull you apart. When a man tries to disrespect, manipulate, or diminish you, your response defines who truly holds control, not over him, but over yourself. Revenge might feel tempting in the moment. You want him to feel what you felt, to taste the pain he served. But revenge operates at his level, while self-respect elevates you beyond it. Self-respect doesn't need an audience. It doesn't seek approval, attention, or applause. It simply exists, strong, still, and unbothered. When you stop trying to prove your worth, to argue your value, or to make someone see what they refuse to appreciate, you step into your own light. The most powerful move isn't screaming how wrong he was, it's showing through your actions that he no longer gets a seat at your table, that he is now irrelevant to your peace, There's a kind of grace in walking away without slamming the door, in refusing to match his disrespect with your own, because when you honor yourself, you show the world, and him, that your standards are not negotiable. You're not punishing him, you're protecting your energy. That kind of discipline confuses the ones who expect chaos. He expects a breakdown, not a breakthrough. But when you move forward with dignity instead of drama, you remove the power he thought he had. It's in your calm that he feels the storm, your silence, your composure, your refusal to beg or plead. That's what lingers in his mind. That's what haunts him when he's alone with his thoughts. Self-respect is not loud, it doesn't attack. It simply refuses to shrink. It doesn't try to win him back or prove a point. It lets go without fear, because it knows that peace is worth more than validation from someone who didn't value you. Every time you choose not to engage in pettiness, every time you choose healing over revenge, you send a clear message: I am not yours to break. He may have expected a reaction, but what he gets is your evolution. What he wanted was control, but what he sees is independence. Emotional attachment can be both beautiful and dangerous. When you deeply care for someone, especially a man who ends up hurting you, your emotions can cloud your judgment. You find yourself justifying his actions, overthinking every word, replaying every conversation, trying to understand what went wrong or what you could have done differently. But the moment you choose to detach emotionally, not because you no longer care, but because you care about yourself more, you begin to see the situation for what it truly is, not what you hoped it could be. Detachment doesn't mean you're cold or unfeeling. It means you're choosing to protect your peace. It's a conscious decision to remove the emotional weight he placed on you, to stop carrying the burden of his behavior, and to stop allowing his inconsistency to dictate your happiness. Emotional detachment is the process of coming back to yourself. It's about shifting the focus from him to you, from trying to fix him to healing you. When you're emotionally attached, you react. You get pulled into his chaos, his silence, his mind games. But when you detach, you observe. You start noticing the patterns. You begin to see the manipulation, the emotional unavailability, the lack of accountability, and you stop trying to change it. Instead, you adjust your response. You choose stillness over struggle, distance over desperation, clarity over confusion. Detachment gives you space to think, to breathe, to feel your own emotions instead of absorbing his. It allows you to recognize your needs, your boundaries, your non-negotiables. You no longer wait for his apology to heal. You no longer need his explanation to understand. You begin to realize that some people hurt you not because you're unworthy, but because they're unhealed. And that has nothing to do with your value. The moment you detach is the moment the dynamic shifts. He may still try to push your buttons, to pull you back in with familiar words or gestures. But this time you're no longer reacting. You're no longer emotionally available for manipulation. That energy, that emotional availability he once took for granted, it's no longer his to access. Because detachment isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's you choosing yourself after being chosen last. There is a certain kind of power in transformation. When a man hurts you, betrays your trust, or disrespects your worth, the most powerful response isn't found in confrontation or retaliation. It's in the glow up. The kind that isn't just about appearance, but about evolution. It's emotional, mental, spiritual. It's deciding that your energy will now go into becoming the best version of yourself, not to prove anything to him, but because you finally remember who you are. Your glow-up is your silent revenge, not because it's meant to hurt him, but because it highlights everything he lost when he failed to value you. The very moment you start pouring energy into your healing, your growth, your goals, your boundaries, he begins to notice. Not because you've said anything, but because your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. You no longer cry for his attention, you shine without it, and glow-ups are not always loud. Sometimes they look like peace, boundaries, solitude, and unapologetic self-love. They look like waking up and no longer checking your phone for a message that never came. They look like dressing up for yourself, choosing new environments, letting go of toxic habits, and nurturing your passions again. It's you coming home to yourself after spending too long being emotionally invested in someone who never deserved that depth. A true glow-up happens when you stop trying to explain your worth to someone who couldn't see it and start living like you know it. That change in you, the way you walk, talk, think, and carry yourself, becomes the reminder of what he can't reach anymore. And that's what confuses him, because he expected you to stay broken, bitter, or stuck. But instead, you leveled up. What he once took for granted is now out of reach, not because you want to hurt him, but because you've elevated beyond that version of yourself that tolerated less. You no longer have time to chase someone who couldn't meet you where you were. Now you're operating at a frequency where only those who match your energy are allowed in. And that shift doesn't require an announcement. Your glow-up does the talking for you. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness, especially by those who confuse compassion with naivety. When a man hurts you, his expectation is often that you'll retaliate, lash out, or fall apart. He anticipates chaos. He's prepared for drama. What he's not prepared for is kindness, not the kind that seeks to win him back, but the kind that is rooted in self-control, self-respect, and quiet strength. When you choose kindness in the face of betrayal or emotional damage, you're not letting him win. You're letting yourself stay free. Kindness doesn't mean you excuse his behavior. It means you no longer allow it to define yours. It's the conscious decision not to be hardened by what hurt you. It's understanding that your character is not determined by his actions, but by your response to them. When you respond with calm, with poise, with dignity, you leave him with no weapon to use against you. He can't manipulate your words or twist your emotions if you refuse to play that game. Being kind isn't about reaching out to fix things or to comfort the person who broke you. It's about maintaining your emotional balance. It's when you can say, "I see exactly who you are, and I choose to rise anyway." Your grace under pressure, your refusal to be pulled into negativity, confuses him more than anger ever could. He begins to question why you're not reacting, why you're not pleading, why you're still carrying yourself with composure. Choosing kindness is a flex he didn't expect. It sends the message that you are so in control of your own spirit that you won't allow anyone, not even someone who hurt you, to turn you bitter. You're showing that your heart didn't harden, it healed. That kind of healing radiates in a way that's impossible to ignore. It makes him reflect. It creates discomfort not because you've said anything, but because you didn't have to. The truth is, anyone can match disrespect with disrespect. That's easy. What takes strength, what takes real power, is staying soft in a world that tried to make you cold. You can walk away with kindness, not because you want to be seen as noble, but because you understand your worth so deeply that you no longer need to scream it. Your peace is louder than any argument. Control is not always about domination or aggression, it's often about choice. When a man hurts you, the first instinct is to explain, to confront, to seek closure. You want him to understand what he did, how deeply it affected you, how much it changed you. But in trying to explain, you often give away your power. You hand over your emotional state to someone who already proved he couldn't handle it. The real shift happens when you stop explaining and start choosing peace instead. Peace is not passive, it's intentional. It's when you decide that no reaction is more powerful than any explanation. You're not choosing silence because you have nothing to say. You're choosing it because not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your emotions, your clarity. Choosing peace means letting go of the desire to be understood by someone who was never listening in the first place. It's deciding that closure doesn't have to come from them. It can come from within you. When you stop trying to justify your feelings or prove your worth, you create space for healing. You redirect your energy away from fixing someone else's behavior and toward rebuilding your own peace of mind. The confusion for him starts when he realizes you're no longer invested in convincing him of anything. You're not bitter, you're not broken, you're just done, and that kind of calm is unnerving to someone who thrived on your emotional reactions. Choosing peace is reclaiming control over your own narrative. It's when you no longer feel the need to relive the pain through conversations that go nowhere. It's when you finally understand that not everything deserves your energy, your time, or your voice. This decision to rise above doesn't make you weak. It makes you untouchable because he can't affect what he no longer has access to. There is strength in restraint. There is clarity in stillness. When you stop defending yourself and start protecting your peace, your entire energy changes. You walk differently. You speak with intention. You no longer react to every trigger because you've learned that not every battle is worth fighting. Some victories are quiet, some power plays are invisible, and often the strongest move you'll ever make is walking away with your soul intact and your peace unshaken.